4:30 in the morning and we're pretty keen to get this show on the road. Just how much of Queensland can we see in just 18 days? Let's go and find out.
There's some stains on your photo, little cracks on your rusty frame, stuck in the mud, but it's okay. I don't have the pieces of you buried in the flashbacks.
Today we head into Longreach, some 550 kilometres away. But before we get there, there's plenty to discover on the way. We'll travel through Tambo, Blackall and on to Barcaldine, the home of the Tree of Knowledge. Blackall sits on the banks of the Barcoo River and was named after the second Governor of Queensland, Sir Samuel Blackall. Blackall was one of the first outback towns to sink an artesian bore back in 1885, and this now supplies the town's water. It reaches the surface at a temperature of 58 degrees Celsius, it's kept in cooling ponds and treated before use. No visit to Blackall would be complete without first a quick stop at the Round Park Historic Museum, which was completed back on Australia Day in 2001, and of course, we visit the Black Stump. The Black Stump was used for surveying purposes and permanently marks the original Astro Station spot, which was established back in 1887. The stump was used as it gave more stability than the tripod legs. At this time in our history, and we are talking 1887, the land west of Blackall was deemed to be beyond the Black Stump. Next it was on to the historic wool scourer. This is the last working steam-powered wool scourer left in Australia. It is a living museum and a direct physical link to Australia's pioneering era. It is totally authentic, unique and full of history with great educational and social benefits for the area. The wool scourer operated commercially under steam power from 1908 until 1978, and though now it is just a tourist attraction, the machinery is as functional now as it was back then, so an absolute credit to the engineering skills of the tradesmen of the time. You can't come to this part of the country and visit a shearing shed without the name Jackie Howe being mentioned. This guy was an absolute bloody legend. In 1892 he shore 321 sheep in 7 3/4 hours with hand shears, a record that still stands today. He was immortalised in a statue which is now located outside the Universal Garden Centre in the centre of town. We treated ourselves with a night in a motel as we had booked a tour in Longreach with Outback Aussie Tours called the Drover's Sunset Cruise. After a guided tour of the town from the coach, we were delivered to the nesting banks of the Thomson River to enjoy the sunset with good people and the majestic surroundings. Once aboard the good ship MV Explorer, we grabbed a refreshment and headed east to explore this stretch of river. We have been lucky at times to see some fantastic sights, and tonight was no exception. With the sun setting in the west, we had a full moon rising in the east that was nothing short of amazing. We then enjoyed a 3-course camp oven meal on white linen tablecloths under a million stars, whilst being entertained by the Legends and Larrikins live show. Oh, what a great way to finish the day.
Folks, we've just got a couple more songs. I hope it's not getting too cool for those of you who didn't bring something. But we just got a couple more songs to finish. This next song we'd like to sing you is a song that we wrote for the Year of the Outback. Thank you for that. Thank you very much.
Wow, how good was last night? Today we don't have too far to travel. We head to Winton and then check out the Bladensburg National Park with a couple of stops on the way. Before leaving town, it was suggested to us that we go and check out Cassidy's Knob, a short detour east of town. The place is also known as Captain Starlight's Lookout, as it was from here in the late 1800s that the notorious cattle thief would muster his stolen cattle at the base of the hill before driving them south to sell, and the lookout would provide him with unobstructed views in all directions to see any approaching riders.
Let's say it's a boat that we're all in together, that barely stays afloat while we all discuss the weather. How long can we all go on before we change our ways? How long till the break of dawn? How long till it days? How long till it days? Let's say it's a bed we all know is on fire. Pharaohs spin our heads, but no one calls out liar. How long can we all go on before we change our ways? How long till the break of dawn? How long till it days? How long till it days? How long can it all go on before we change our ways? How long till the break of dawn? How long till it days? How long till the break of dawn?
Once in the Bladensburg National Park, there is a bit to see. Skull Hole and the Lookout were both breathtaking. Then it was time to find a campsite for the night. We were spoiled again with the clear skies and a picturesque moon. Today we make our way into Mount Isa at around 530 k's. It's a nice little 6-hour drive with a couple of stops along the way. After parking the car, we walked into the many waterholes and marvelled at the little weirs that had been built. The correct term for them is overshots or stone-faced walls. They were built here in the 1890s to try and provide a reliable water source in this region after the wet season had finished. This would allow for water along the stock routes to rehydrate the cattle as they walked them to the markets. This area became famous for many reasons. Let's take a step back in time. It's 1895. The shearer strike of 1891 and 94 is over, but the bitterness between landowners and shearers lingers on. Andrew Barden Banjo Patterson and his fiancée Sarah Riley, Christina McPherson and her brother Bob have ridden over to Combo Waterhole for a picnic. This is Banjo's first visit to outback Queensland. He is fascinated by the stories that Bob McPherson tells about the shearers, swagmen, cattle duffing and sheep stealing, and the general life in the outback. Life here was very different from Banjo's previous experience of bush life in southern New South Wales. A quick stop off to the Perkins Memorial and this monument as we pass into the ancient tribal lands of the Kalkadoon people. Then it wasn't long before we made our way into Mount Isa. The plan was to spend a couple of days in Mount Isa. First off, we went off to see if we could find the East Leichhardt Dam. After finding the access road through some private property, we came across this camel. Certainly wasn't what we expected to see, but they'd had some fairly severe bushfires in the area in the preceding weeks, and I guess this guy was chasing up feed and a drink. We followed the well-marked track and eventually found the dam. It's also known as Lake Mary Kathleen, as it was dammed for an emergency water supply for the now closed uranium mine. I've spent plenty of time here over the past 10 years with work, but never got to see too much of the country. I've marvelled at the Red Hills, its heritage, and what else it had to offer, so now was a great opportunity to uncover it for ourselves. Is that a camel whisperer, you ask? With the advent of World War II and the bombing of Darwin, precautions were taken to protect the Mount Isa Hospital. An underground area was made, and as history tells us, the war didn't reach Mount Isa. Therefore, the hospital was not needed. But right up to the 1960s, night shift nurses working at the local hospital would sleep down here because of the cool, dark and quiet. As the new hospital was being built in 1959, construction damaged the hospital, the community protested and it was saved, but left to deteriorate. It has now been carefully restored and is available to visit to soak up some of the nostalgia of the time. A few hours was spent visiting the Mount Isa experience, which apart from the mining history, has information and fossils that have been collected from the Riversley fossil site situated north of Mount Isa. Next it was out to Lake Mundara. This artificial lake was produced by the damming of the Leichhardt River and was completed in 1958. The lake provides Mount Isa and the mine with its water supply. It provides the locals with picnic areas, water sports facilities, and is home to some large barramundi, if you're lucky enough. With clean jocks, socks and a pantry full of goodies, we leave Mount Isa behind and head further north to Lawn Hill. We'd heard so much about this place in the lead up to our trip, it was marked as one of the highlights and a must do, so here's hoping that it lives up to the expectations. But I found out about a bit of a shortcut that, depending on the water levels, may or may not be opened, that would take us past the Riversley fossil site that we read so much about at the information centre back in Mount Isa. With plenty of gravel ahead, we air down the tyres to make the trip just that little bit more comfortable. On the way, we had to cross the Gregory River 3 times. Wow, would this be a sight to see after heavy rain? The Riversley Site D is Australia's most famous fossil location. recognised for the series of well-preserved fossils deposited here a long time ago. They talk about the changing landscape out here quite freely, but between 25 and 30 billion years ago, the Riversley area was covered in rainforest and dotted with lakes and spring-fed pools. These are among the historical fossils that have been found in the area. A couple worthy of mention, the big bird, this huge bird known as a Thunderbird. Now you've got my attention. Who doesn't love a Thunderbird? Stood up to 2.5 metres tall and weighed in at between 250 and 300 kilos. Fossil remains of the Thunderbirds are by far the most conspicuous fossils to be found in the Riversley area. Other ancient survivors, the freshwater crocodile, this species was discovered here and it is the largest crocodile yet recorded at Riversley. Measuring 5 metres in length, this croc was a freshwater carnivore and is believed to have lived and preyed along the margins of the rivers and lakes.
Say you think about me because I'm starting to doubt we will find our way back to each other when you're on the other side of the world. I'm here and I'm waiting, but I know I can't say that we didn't end it for good reasons. Still I'm hoping we'll be meeting soon. Everybody needs some time to figure themselves out, but I want you close, and I still have hope. I'm waiting every day for you to come back and tell me we can work it out, forget about the past. Now time moves slow. I'm not high or low, no, I'm somewhere in the middle and a little bit messed up. 'Cause without you, I want you close, and I still have hope. I'm waiting every day for you to come back and tell me we can work it out, forget about the past. Now time moves slow. I'm not high or low, no, I'm somewhere in the middle and a little bit messed up.
Finding a campsite was a bit of a dilemma. The problem was there was just too many to choose from. We finally found a little spot and set ourselves up, and then we head up to the office to see what activities were on offer. Well folks, there was a sunset tour of course, so guess what? Wine, cheese and a setting sun, it doesn't get much better than that. The staff at the lodge take you to the top of Harry's Hill, which is just a short drive down the road, where we enjoyed the wine and the company and the sunset.
And I still have hope. I'm waiting every day for you to come back and tell me we can work it out, forget about the past. Now time moves slow. I'm not high or low, no, I'm somewhere in the middle and a little bit messed up. 'Cause without you everything stops. Without you everything stops.
In the next episode, we explore the Bungie National Park, take to a canoe and explore the waterfalls of the gorge, and make our way to Karumba and the Gulf Country. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit the like button. Thanks and see you next time.